Four more presenters yet this afternoon. Could I have your attention, please, friends? I'd like to call the room to order, please. And could I invite Lois Roasting to come forward? And could I ask Bill Elliott to be on standby, please, to come next? Lois Roasting, please.
Hi.
Just one second. I really need to ask for silence in the room, please, so we can listen to the presenters. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Hi. My birth name was Lois Grace Half. My dad was late Louis Half, but I was adopted by my grandparents, Albert and Peggy Roan, but I go by Lois Grace Roasting now. Grace was given to me by the boarding school because they were French nuns, so they probably couldn't say Lois. And I'm the second generation that was taken from my grandparents. My mother was in a boarding school and taken away from my grandma, and then I was the second generation taken away from her. And I've been in there for 8 years in the boarding school, and I stayed there till it closed down. So I only have a grade 8 level, and I've been diagnosed as manic depressant, and been diagnosed a lot of things. But a lot of people, when they talk to me, they say, "You're not like that." But the government likes to label us because of the sexual abuse and the booze can environment we grew up in. I have, there's hardly any of my classmates that are alive to this day. And I went to a sweat last night, and I've been following my tradition quite a bit because both parents, my father and my mother, are dead. My grandparents on both sides, the Halves and the Roastings, are dead. So to this day, I am a bundle holder of the family, so I follow my cultural ways. I do. Summertime, I sweat Wednesday and Sundays. And I do that because I believe we were forced in the RC, the Roman Catholic, we were forced in that, and I believe they are hypocrites because the abuse they gave us, and then they had to go pray for themselves on Sundays to forgive themselves what they did to us. And to this day, I see that on the reserve. People that go to church hurt people all week, and then they go on Sundays to go pray to forgive themselves what they did during the week. It's hard for me to go to church anymore, but I believe in my cultural ways, and that's what brought me to this day to be who I am. This morning, I was literally crying to my grandkids. And I brought my grandson with me for them to try to understand why I'm not a huggy grandma, I guess, to hug them. I'm not that way. I don't show affection that much to a person. And I have to try to comprehend my way of thinking because I do love my grandkids to death and my kids, but they don't understand why I don't show my affection as I should. I was sexually abused, I was physically abused in the boarding school. What I don't like about the government is how they label us, to the point where my youngest son is 16, and he's been in AKO care, child welfare care, and because of my past, because of my history, the government think a person cannot heal and be a sane person what I went through. And I cannot believe they can hold that on your head every time you try to fight for your child. Today he's AWOL. He's on his own, and he can't even come home because of how they labeled me. You know, what I don't understand is why, you know, this, like somebody said, it's like a slap in the face, what we got, and all the points. And the thing is what I don't get is they only pick one abuse and you get paid for that one abuse, when in fact you got abused so many different ways, and everything like should be paid accordingly to all the abuses. To this day, I had 25 years of counseling, and I still talk to my counselor. I still try to seek to heal, and I was told by one person or organization that forgiveness is not the way, and I always had to forgive and forget. That was my motto, and that's what got me here today. Next Wednesday I'll be 52, and I do not understand why that person told me don't forgive, because it's not that way. And but I always told him that, well, that's how I am who I am today, because I forgive and forget and keep on going and try to seek some kind of, you know, some kind of way to, I even got hypnotized so it won't bother me as much to talk about the way I was treated in school. The only good thing, I always try to look the positive in everything, is they showed me how to knit and crochet and sew. So I do my crafts, and I make money out of my crafts now. And that's the only positive thing that came out of it, because I didn't want to just sit there and be depressed because I wanted to go home and I missed my parents. Some days I do hate that I was abused, but other days I feel blessed that I'm still here, and I'm here for a reason. And a lot of people back home in Mamio where I come from, they always kind of look up to me because they see the positive things I try to do to help out people, to go out of my way. My old man is always getting mad at me because I help out everybody. But, you know, even me, I'm struggling. Sometimes it's not a good day to be me. Other days it's a good day. But what I would like to say is I thank you guys for trying to reconciliate and hear the truth behind what we went through. I see it in my family. I don't have parents or grandparents. We only have each other, but we don't really have anybody. And the past week I buried 3 people, and it was very sad, and I'm still saddened by it. But life goes on. And I just like to wish you people all safe travels home. And the way for healing, in my sense, is our traditional way. And get hypnotized, because it does work. It does work. And I just wanted to say that, and I just had be saddened because of all I've been following this from Edmonton, Red Deer, and it was close to home. So I'll be seeing you at the next one. And I just wanted to thank, in Red Deer, I even had dinner with Joe Clark. I thought that was cool. But, you know, for somebody that high to come and hear our stories and stuff. But it just saddens me for the child taken and the parent left behind. It really hits home for me because my parents aren't there anymore. My grandparents aren't there anymore. So I go out in the community to try to find somebody that I can relate to on a daily basis, because sometimes I might have it together, but in reality, I need help too, to talk to somebody. I don't have anybody anymore, and some days I get mad at the government I blame them for taking my parents and grandparents away. So all I have to say to everybody is, if you have parents out there, love them. Because you don't want to be in my shoes when you don't have nobody. And thank you for listening.
Just as Mr. Elliott is getting settled in, could I please ask one of the health support workers there near the door, Gordon, maybe you could help with this, just to ask the people in the outer hallway if they could either move away or try to keep their voices down a little bit, because every time the door opens, it's really quite disruptive in here, and it's distracting for the person who's sharing especially. Thank you for that. When you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Elliott, and I'm the mayor of the city of Wetaskiwin, which is the neighbors 10 miles north of Hobbema. Wetaskiwin is a Cree word that means hills of peace, or place where peace was made. So it seems rather significant that we should be here to talk about peace and truth and reconciliation. Part of my mandate when I ran in the last election was that to enhance the relationships between Wetaskiwin and Hobbema. And I've been doing that and sitting here listening for 2 days to people tell their truths. I just would really like to thank all of them for their courage to stand up or to sit here and share. And I keep hearing that I'm not very educated, but I cannot believe how articulate everybody was in their speeches and made themselves very, very clear in such an honest way. I would just like to share my journey of growth since last November. Last November, we were talking about having a building bridges workshop in Wetaskiwin. It was kind of going to be the forerunner to this commission. So I was phoned and asked if I would like to be on the committee. Lorne Green had this idea, and thank goodness he had this idea and brought it to fruition. So I got on this committee and I sat there and I'm listening and I said, I have to be honest with you, I think it's time that you guys just got over it. I said, it happened 40 years ago, why didn't you just let it go? And I sat around the table and they said, just listen, and so I did, and I heard about people from the residential schools with their problems with drugs and with alcohol and about the physical abuse and because of what they had suffered through, this is how they ended up. And then I had an aha moment. My dad came back from the war, from the Second World War, and he had post-traumatic stress disorder, and he was going through electric shock treatments and everything else to try and get him straightened out. And then I was thinking, okay, so 40 years ago, you should be able to get rid of it. Well, my dad was at Expo in Vancouver, and about 11 o'clock at night, the fireworks went off. And my dad ran for 3 blocks because he thought it was the bombs blowing up in the Second World War. And he ran, and he was on medication for 3 months after that. And that was 41 years after the war ended. And then I think of some of the abuse that I heard about, and I was thinking about my mother. My mother is 99 years old. She's still alive, and she has dementia. Not total dementia, but partial dementia. And she went to a Catholic school. And when we asked Mom about her school, one of the first things she says is, I was left-handed, you know, but the nuns beat it out of me. Every time I picked up anything with my left hand, I got swatted with a ruler. So when I'm listening to these stories, that's why Judy is sitting beside me, because I'm not sure how emotional I'm going to get with this. But I just wanted to share that with you. We had the Building Bridges workshop, again under Lorne Green's leadership, and we had 170 grade 10 students come to this workshop, and they were from Hobbema, the county of Wetaskiwin, and the city of Wetaskiwin. And we decided on grade 10 students because they would be in high school for at least 2 more years, and they could share what they had learned. And we had Project Heart there, and it was just a really excellent day. So the students were there from 9:30 till 2:30. They went back on the school buses, and then we had 250 adults from 3 o'clock till almost 10 o'clock that night, sharing a lot of what's been shared today, amongst other things about the history. And I just learned so much. And I just would like to thank everybody who was involved with that. And I think it helped the people of Wetaskiwin come to an understanding of some of the trials and tribulations that our neighbors to the south have been going through all their life. I'm a retired school teacher and principal, and I'm a grandpa, and I'm a great-grandpa, and I'm sitting here listening, and I'm thinking, what educational principles were being used while you were being taught in the residential schools? If we had an immigrant come to Canada now who didn't understand English, would we smack them around because we were trying to teach them in English and they didn't understand? How do you teach a child that 2 times 2 is 4 if their stomach is grumbling because they're hungry? If there's no positive reinforcement, why would you be encouraged to do better? So the negative reinforcement that was received, I just find just tragic. When you don't sleep, you don't eat, and you're afraid, I am just amazed that you were able to learn what you did learn. we're working on a healing journey, as you have talked about, and we are working on a healing journey between the city of Wetaskiwin and the Cree First Nations. And I think some of you are aware of some of the things that we have tried to do. As you come into Wetaskiwin from the south, you will see that our sign is in Cree syllabics as well that welcomes you. My business cards and 2 other people on City Council, the back of our business cards are written in Cree syllabics. Just as an aside, when I got some business cards from a couple of councillors from the Sampson Cree Nation, I asked them where the Cree was on their business cards, and they said, "We never thought of that." So I found that very interesting. If you read the Edmonton Journal, I think it was on Wednesday, there was quite a good article, and Lorne Green's picture was in there as well. So you can go online and find that, and it was a very good article about the relationship between our 2 communities. So there are some things happening. We still have a long way to go. We are taking baby steps in the healing process, but we are working together for better communities to understand and respect the differences and similarities in our culture. And Commissioner Wilson, I would really like to thank you. I just am very impressed with the job that you have done in overseeing this whole tribunal, and it's just wonderful the way that you summarized yesterday. I would also really like to thank the volunteers. They made sure that people were getting food, they were cleaning up after us, and welcomed us with smiles and coffee, and thank you, Brian, and your whole team for doing that. And so I'd just like to thank you very much for allowing me to talk. I did not take anybody's place in line. I checked first to make sure that there was room. If there was no room, I was not going to speak. So for a teacher and a politician to talk for only 8 minutes is really good. So thank you very much. Hi, hi. Thank you very much, Peter. I felt stronger because you were sitting there. Thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Marilyn Buffalo. My Cree name is Kiksupau Simsko, which means morning sun woman. I got that name because I do have a tendency to wake up early in the morning and make everyone else feel guilty for sleeping in. I was born in Sampson Cree Nation, and I'm 4th generation of women that went to school in Ermineskin Residential School. I welcome you to Treaty 6 territory. I spent from 0 to 7 years of age in the arms of my great-grandmother. Mary Nepus Buffalo was her name. My early childhood education was beautiful. I learned only in Cree. I learned all the ceremonies. I learned to go to church in a horse and wagon with my grandmother. For me, I was not culturally confused. I was very fortunate. And I learned how to ride a horse, how to take care of myself, and nobody messed with me by the time the priest came to pick me up at the age of 7. And I'm very fortunate. I understand that now because when I came to Ermineskin, we were not allowed to speak our language. We were told that the Sundance, we were worshiping the devil. We were told by untrained, unprofessional teachers who took great joy in beating the heck out of the boys and the girls, that we were never going to amount to anything, and called savage. And the staff only spoke French to each other. We, as a result, learned to speak very poor English. And as a result, many lost their Cree language. This is where the cultural confusion began. and why many people today, I believe, are still believing that they're never going to amount to anything. My grandmother, my mother's mother, Harriet Buffalo, was orphaned at the age of 3 because of tuberculosis. Her father was Henry Louis Norwest, who was a war hero in the First War, was born and raised here as well, and also at the age of 3 became a student in Ermineskin School. My mother, Cecile Buffalo Makokis, also was a student here. And because at that time she was not allowed to go beyond age 16, even though she's a very brilliant woman, she could not go beyond grade 7. So I spent grade 7, 8, and 9 here in residential school, and I was sent to Drumheller after my parents were not consulted. We were sent grade 10, 11, 12 to Drumheller. Now, because I was alone in high school for the first time away from my family, I'm the oldest of 12 children, I learned how to be responsible. Even though I didn't have the authority as the eldest in the family, I still had a responsibility to look after my children and my family, and the eldest in the first to graduate in grade 12 from my family. So I want to go back to 1963 when I was 13 years old. The first time I saw a library. Prior to that, I was stealing books and got into severe trouble because of it. And I was learning to read about the Third Reich and the Jewish people and how they had been persecuted. And I heard and I read about Dick Gregory and the persecution of the black people in the United States. I was only a small child, and I got into trouble for doing so. But at the age of 13, I went to College St. Jean as a student. I was in grade 9 or 8 at the time. And the first time I saw a library as big as this room here. And I thought it was so unjust that here all these French people that had educated me or attempted to had books that were written in French only, but there were none in the Cree language, and I found that to be terribly unjust. This took me, I made a vow. I sat on the middle of the floor of College St. Jean, where I now live about a few blocks away. And I recall this day, I said, I'm going to be back, and I'm going to make a difference. 12 years later, I was appointed advisor on Native Affairs to the University of Alberta and instituted the foundation for the School of Native Studies. And prior to that, I had learned from the elders. I chose not to go to university because I found that everything I was learning was irrelevant, and it was taught in English only. So, and it wasn't even in the historical context of where I had learned. I traveled Treaty 6, 7, and 8. By the time I was 19, 20, 21, I instituted the first school, an early childhood education program in the Dene language in the Northwest Territories, Yellowknife, the Tree of Peace Child Development Center. So everywhere I've lived, I've instituted a school, a program, in order to rebuild our nations. Because I think that's where it's at. We have to do the groundwork, and that's with the children. Now, I said I don't have any authority, but fate being where it's at, I've worked in policy all of my life. I've been a special advisor to Jean Chrétien, the Prime Minister. I've been advised many Prime Ministers since Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Now, I say this because I was president of Native Women of Canada. Let me go back a couple of years prior to that. I'm well aware that Justice Canada hid some documents, key documents, and advised then the Liberal government head head up by the minister, Ron Irwin, that they should not give a full apology. We know that exists. I've spoken to many people that were involved. I'm also well aware that they were advised to minimize legal liability, never to give a full apology, and they gave instead, under Minister Jane Stewart, a statement of reconciliation, and hence buried the Royal Commission on Aboriginal People, which many of us testified at that commission. When I became president of Native Women of Canada, I did not choose to be the president. I was recruited by elders. During that time, there was a statement of reconciliation. They tried to mask it as an apology. Unfortunately, I was not allowed as a leader to seek legal advice, nor the advice of my leaders, nor was I allowed to take a copy of that document so that I can show it to my executive. And I knew then that we were going down a trail of broken treaties, further down the trail. Now, my ancestors are very strong, powerful leaders. John Tatusis, who taught me from the earliest age, Joe Dion Buffalo, who was also my grandfather, taught me to stand up for myself. Now, I was chastised because I did not accept that as a full apology. And the Native Women of Canada stands on record here in Canada as being totally against it. Now, we had to wait 10 full years to 2008 before we actually got a full apology. But I have questions, and I want to say this to Prime Minister Harper. The opportunity for him is to come before my people in my treaty area here in Treaty 6, to come clean as an expert witness himself and as to what his government intends to do to correct the past wrongs for my people, my family, my children, and my great-grandchildren. And yes, I am a great-grandmother 4 times. And unless these are addressed, and we have the proper budget as elders to be able to convey the traditional knowledge, to rebuild our nations, to restore and revitalize the Cree language, I'm afraid the apology is only empty words. And I want to be, in my lifetime, have the opportunity to work with Mr. Harper himself and his bureaucrats to correct that. Most recently, I was involved in the MOU for First Nations education, in developing a strategy so that we can work together with the federal government and the provincial governments, and also the Treaty 6, 7, and 8. The terms of that agreement still has to be implemented. It cannot be just falling on deaf ears. We in our nation have the highest form of addictions, high number of single parents, single mothers like myself. We have the need for adult education because of the multi-generational impact of what we have suffered here in these institutions. This school here, these 4 walls. And the government has a legal obligation. The churches have a moral and a spiritual obligation to support us and to work with us so that we can restore and rebuild the Cree Nation of Musqueam Cree. Thank you very much.
And if I could invite Lauren Green to come forward, please.
My name is Lauren Green. I attended Ermineskin Indian Residential School from 68 to 75. In there, I made a lot of friends that became brothers. We spent 7 years together. And in there, I was abused by the head supervisor of the school. I was sexually abused. And as a result, I became addicted and to alcohol and drugs for many years. I hid in the substances to mask the pain, and I've been in this line of work. I'm an RHSW since 2008, and I found out that my perpetrator was named several times. I went to school with a lot of guys that had potential. They were going to go somewhere in life. But their lives were cut short. I began research on my own for a little over a year now. And what I'd done was I wrote down all the guys that I went to school with that I can remember that have passed on. And then I went to their families and asked them how they passed on. So I'm going to read out this list. I'm not going to read the names, but I'm going to give you the gender and how they died. I wish I could read the names because these are my brothers and sisters that I went to school with. I knew them personally. So we have a male. He died by suicide. Male murdered. Male hit by a vehicle. Male suicide. Male OD. Male alcohol related. Male murdered. Male suicide. Male murdered. Male OD. Male suicide. Male AIDS. Male OD. Male suicide. Male murdered. Male OD. Female alcohol related. Male murdered. Female cancer. Female alcohol withdrawal. Female alcohol withdrawal. Male alcohol withdrawal, female hit by vehicle, male suicide, male suicide, female suicide, female suicide, male suicide, male suicide, male murdered, male heart attack, male frozen, female drowned, female cirrhosis, liver damage, female alcohol related, male froze, male suicide, male murdered, male suicide, male froze, male suicide, male hit by vehicle, male suicide, male murdered, male MVC, male suicide, male alcohol, male cirrhosis, and male murdered. These are brothers and sisters that I went to school with. And I've learned later that my perpetrator also abused some of these students. The effects of the schools since April 2012, we've had 108 deaths in our community. I want to close by giving 3 recommendations for reconciliation. One is to acquire our artifacts, our bundles. And the other is to allow us to implement our own restorative justice in our communities. And last is to allow us to use our methods for recovery. Sta pilmas ko sigasan. Hai hai.
That is the last of the speakers, but we do have some closing activities, and I would like to offer you some closing remarks. So I think we'll just take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll come back to end the day in a good way altogether. So just come back in 5 minutes, please. Okay, friends, if I could ask you to come back, we're going to carry on and wrap up our program for today. We'll see what comes out. Could I call you back into the room, please, so we can conclude today's session? Could I ask those over by the door maybe to spread the word to others who can't hear yet? We're going to wrap up today. We're going to reconvene for some concluding remarks. I would like to offer you some, and I know that your regional vice chief is here and wishes to speak with us as well. And there are some closing expressions of appreciation that we want to share. So I ask you please to just take your places and come together one last time. So, with your permission, I'm going to offer you some concluding remarks of my own on our day that we've shared, and then I'll hand over to Brian, who will walk us through the rest of the afternoon agenda. And what another beautiful and rich day it has been. I'm sure those of you who were here with us yesterday and who've been here for the full 2 days will agree with me that it has been a very powerful experience that we've shared over these last 2 days. I want to, on behalf of all of us, offer some particular thank yous, first of all. And I want to acknowledge Brian Wildcat and the organizing volunteer team that did, and the organizing committee and all of their volunteers who worked for not days, not weeks, but months leading up to this event to do all of the preparation. Some of it will be very obvious to you, and others that obvious by the fact that there were so few little glitches, none in fact that I'm aware of, that things ran so smoothly. And that takes a lot of hard work to make things seem so seamless. So we thank you very, very much for all of your very hard work and your care, not only to prepare things, but to make things feel and look beautiful as well. I want to acknowledge once again today the very important work of the interpreters who do that very difficult task of taking in sometimes very difficult, hard messages and turning them around in a different language when a lot of times it's their very own experience that they're also talking about. And so we appreciate with great thanks how hard that job is. I want to acknowledge the people who have been in the rooms outside of this one, who have been gathering statements in the private statement gathering area, and without the benefit of a whole lot of support in the room with them in a much smaller forum. And we know that that can be very challenging work as well. And I want to acknowledge and honor as well all those who chose to give statements in those private rooms and didn't get the benefit of our appreciation witnessing that with you. I want to thank, even while I ask for, do we have numbers there, guys? 2 seconds. I want to acknowledge the technical people, including the media, any who are still here or any who may be monitoring still online, for the role that they have played in helping the broader community be part of this experience with us. And I want to acknowledge for all of us as well the health support team. There's probably not one of us in this room that hasn't benefited directly or indirectly from the health support team. Just knowing they were there for those of us who may not have called on someone directly, but some of us who've had opportunity to speak to individuals and the kind of care and informed attention they pay to our well-being. As I said to you yesterday, one of the things we do with our equipment is allow for the rest of the world to walk with us on this journey. And we have, again today, offered service through the internet. Yesterday, I told you what the results had been, and today the numbers are even bigger. We've had 6 countries monitoring us through the internet, and for anyone who's still watching, I just want to acknowledge with great appreciation how much it means to us, your interest and your support. We've had people joining us from Canada, the Netherlands, the United States, Greece, Germany, and Malaysia. Of course, more than anything else, we want to acknowledge all of you in this room who have come forward to give statements here and those of you who have given statements in the private rooms. What we've experienced here together has been both a further proving of what we've heard in other places, but also those things that are unique to your own experiences and to the experiences of especially the Ermineskin School, but other schools that some of you attended that you told us about. And without repeating all of the sad and difficult messages, I do want to let you know that we hear and have heard of your losses, and we honor those. Those of you who had parents pass away while you were at the schools, and who had a renewed sense, or perhaps even a lost sense, of the ability to go home, because home would never be the same again. Those of you who were never able quite to go home because the circumstances had changed for you there altogether. Those of you who talked about your experiences in the schools of bullying, some of you being bullied and some of you acknowledging having been part of those who were involved in bullying as a defense. Beat or be beaten, I think one of you said. I think that's how it was expressed yesterday. And the very first thing you learned was to fight, someone said again today. So that notion of the physical violence that was a permeating part of the experience for so many of you. We heard many of you talk about your great pain over loss of language and culture. But we also heard from several of you the efforts you have taken and are continuing to take to reclaim that and to make it vital not only for yourselves, but where you're able to pass that on to others through the schools or through your own family members. We heard someone say today, and I've heard this in other places, I was a bad boy. And I want to say to you, as the grown-ups that we all are here in this room today, you were not a bad boy and you were not a bad girl. You were little children. You were little children. And these things that happened, no matter what anyone told you, were not your fault. What I want you to know more than anything else today is that I have heard you, and I see you, and I believe you. And I'm sure that we have all felt that way in this room. We started off our day with a beautiful song that was offered for us. It was called an understanding song. And in a way, I feel that we have been singing that song to ourselves all day long as our understanding has deepened, as we have heard in new ways things that perhaps we thought we knew even about each other. Even some of you who have known each other all your lives, I know, will have heard things about each other that you had not heard before. Indeed, several of you said you had not shared these things before. We heard a number of people talk about the challenges of leaving school, of suddenly being 16 or 17 and out the door and no plan and no tools and no sense of where to go or what was next. And yet we heard countless stories of people here who have found their way, who have zigged and zagged along the way, but who have found their way to enough place of strength to be able to come forward to this table and share what you know and teach us what you have to tell us. We heard stories today of the enticement of belonging and of becoming part of a gang, and then realizing that there was a better way, that there was a pathway, a choice for love instead of a pathway that was going to lead potentially to extreme violence and a fear of death. We heard examples of people who even today are looking for help, but not help from somewhere else, help from right here within this community, help that comes from loneliness, that doesn't require dollars or new resources or programs. It requires exercising that deep value which many others of you talked about, which is kindness and the ability to reach out and be present for others. And I mention that one because I think there's great hope there to identify those things that can be addressed and addressed right away. We heard many people today talk about positive things that happened in the school and an ability to appreciate those things that benefited them. And education was one. Ability to play the violin and musical instruments was another. The opportunity to be in cadets and to learn about firearms that would serve later for hunting was another. Learning to knit and sew and crochet in a way that today allows for additional income for that individual. And most importantly of all of the positive things, we heard about family, schoolmates who became family, brothers and sisters who were the ones who went to school with you, not necessarily the brothers and sisters in the other sides of the dorms that you weren't allowed to see, but the ones that you went to school with and were in class with and who became family. I think today we had a number of offerings about how we can redefine family if we need to. Rather than feeling we have lost our family, to recognize that sometimes we reclaim family in different ways. If the one that we were born into is not available to us for one reason or another, and our ability to find and create new family in other ways. In fact, we heard a lot of lessons today. We heard about the importance of individual strength and individual choices of what a person can do. And I lost track of how many of you said, I made a decision that I was going to help others, or I decided to speak in the hope that what I had to say would help others. So a lot to be said about what the individual can do and is already doing. We heard a number of you as well talk about the importance of community. I was able to do what I was able to do because of the support of my community. We heard a number of people talk about family, and I'm coming back to that one again, but one statement that was even described as a tribute to my family. And then, of course, we heard a lot about our country and Canada and even our Prime Minister and what needs to be done there by our leadership, by our elected leadership. We've had, over the last 2 days, the encouraging example of elected leadership that has sat here among us for the entire time. And a strong statement from an elected leader who said, I've changed in my thinking. I used to say, why don't you get over it? And then I had an aha moment, and I was able to relate to what you were telling me because I could relate to my father's experience and my grandmother's experience, and new things became possible. So that inspiration of knowing that things can change and relationships can change and understanding can deepen and can shift. I've lost track of how many prayers we heard today. And maybe that's just as well. I'm not sure that prayers are for counting, but they're certainly for feeling. And they're for entering into. And we were offered many prayers today in many different ways, in many different words, in different contexts, but all of them intended for our individual and collective well-being. We heard today about wasted potential, but we also heard about claimed potential. People who had no education and managed to do things, or people who had education and realized it was not the education that was going to serve them, it was a return to their traditional cultural teachings that was going to serve them. And I note that because I think it says there is no one way, and there is no right answer, and there is no one size fits all on this pathway. But through our shared experiences, we've heard many suggestions of things that have worked for individuals, and things perhaps that might work for some of you, and things that you may not yet have tried. We heard in the very first statement today, one of a number of teachings. But when Raymond Cutknife spoke to us through his own story, and he actually named these passages. He talked about when he was in residential school, and he said, I was in a state of fear, and then there was abuse, and then I was full of anger, and then I realized I was completely consumed with hatred, and then I was full of bitterness. And then, and I'm not going to repeat his story, he was able to shift through a miracle, as he described it, to forgiveness, realizing that forgiveness was the true pathway to love, as he had come to understand it. And I think all of us have found ourselves somewhere on that chart, and maybe back and forth. But it was a wonderful summary of that cycle and where we are all trying to get to, which is a place of peace and love in our lives and for our children and our grandchildren. And so many of you talked about that. Well, as I did yesterday, I like to leave the last word on what the survivors said to the survivors themselves. And so let me just offer back to you some of the nuggets of your own wisdom and the positive and uplifting message that it leaves us with. I thought I used to understand the true meaning of love. I didn't. In order to understand the true meaning of love, I had to learn to forgive with absolute, true conviction. It became my mission to help other people. Through it all, I persevered because I had the support of a good community. Thanks to the women for supporting me. Thanks to the men for accepting me. And thank you to those I helped for trusting me. This has to be taught in schools, in North America and in other countries. The Commission has helped us to open the eyes for those ideas to be implemented. I choose love over business. There is darkness and there is light. That light is your parental guidance. When they are gone, that light, you are going to carry it on. When you want to forget something, you forgive somebody. I have beautiful, kind daughters, and I love them. My youngest grandchild is only 2 weeks old, and I love him so much, even though I haven't even seen him open his eyes yet. Now in my journey, I have raised my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and stepchildren. I'm proud to say that I also stress education on them. I don't want any of them to be on the welfare line. Now I can continue my journey because every day is a new beginning for each one of us. Every day, God gives us a new plan. My aspiration is what my grandfather taught me, to be a true member of this community. I have overcome obstacles because of the Creator and because I believe in my culture. Today I am a pipe carrier. I help my people, and that helps me to carry on. I believe this is the only way we are going to heal, is to help each other. We have to sit together as nations if we want things to get better for all our children and grandchildren. I believe in the teachings an elder gave me of the 3 stages of life: being cared for, learning to care for people, and caring for others. Experiencing other people's pain has helped me to deal with my own. I don't blame anyone here. I pray there is healing. Be strong and keep the faith. If you have parents out there, love them. The government has a legal obligation. The churches have a moral and a spiritual obligation to help us rebuild the Cree Nation of Musqueam. We need to acquire our artifacts and our bundles. We need to implement our own restorative justice, and we need to use our methods for recovering. So these are just some highlights. So many of you said so many good things, so those are just some highlights of some of the things that I think are good for all of us to take away and to give further thought to as to what that would mean, and to look at what are the things in there that I myself can do. What are the things that my family can do, or that we can do within our family? What are the things that our community can do with and for each other? And what are those things that do belong with our elected leadership, that we need to turn to them and ask them to fulfill their leadership in ways that will address the outstanding issues of concern? And so I think we've given, through the gift of our sharing over the last 2 days, good guidance to ourselves. You've given very good input to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I think we have the makings here of giving good guidance to our communities and to our country. This work, as I said yesterday, is not a healing moment. It is a healing journey. And it is not just Aboriginal peoples and communities that need to heal. It is Canada that needs to heal. This is Canada's history. This is our shared history, and this is our shared responsibility. So thank you all very much for your contributions to helping us look at that through clear and honest eyes and to think more fully about what our next steps must be as we continue to explore what meaningful reconciliation means in the present so that we can have respectful relations going forward from here. Thank you all very much. Masicho and hi hi.
Dr. Marie Wilson. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much. As with every significant event, we always started off with an opening ceremony, and this is going to be no different. We will also have a closing ceremony. So with that in mind, we're going to go right to our speakers, and then we're almost at the end of our program, so bear with us. You'll be able to go home, be home by supper time. First of all, our friend and relative from the Nakota First Nations, Regional Vice Chief, Cameron Alexis.
Hi, Shnish Miwasan. I'm just going to speak in my own language very briefly, because speaking my own language is very crucial to everything we're discussing here for the past 2 days. Daguchwa nahanin pagawhana istuchumuzabwan. Nawaka agajhamtuan ta yapjin ago chimga. Wakausti ibastawatuk ta yapjin stabna Shnish. Danse Danita Anin Masi. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the gallery, elders, members of the Ermineskin community, Musqueam chiefs, members of the Aboriginal community, and fellow Canadians. Abawashtit means good day. I gave thanks to the Creator, and I shake the hand of everyone sitting here today. And I want to thank the organizers for allowing me to speak very briefly. And you know, I'll be, as an elected member of the AFN, I'm very thankful for the chiefs for putting me here as well. And I want to thank former leaders, current leaders, for their wisdom, their guidance, the elders for their wisdom, their guidance for bringing us here today. Leaders such as Marilyn Buffalo, Chief Makokas, Wilton Littlechild, who we consider our United Nations chief. Excellent work by the Commission. I know through this journey, they themselves would have to take some very serious time off, because sitting here listening to, you know, the people, it's very difficult. It's not an easy thing to sit here and listen to very powerful, painful statements. And I'll just bring you on a quick journey, even for myself. My grandmother spent 10 years in residential school as well. I apologize, I got my things written down. So this thing is not just answering your Facebook and everything else, text. I have my notes here. And the point is, even to sit here at this table to present is not easy. So those of you that know me, I spent 23 years in the RCMP. I'm a retired member of the RCMP. And even going back to that journey is not easy, because at that time the RCMP members had to follow the will and the rule of law of the government of the day. So it's not easy. So on that note, you know, when you think about everything that was talked about for the past day, past 2 days, the past several years, we definitely on a difficult journey that, you know, terms of healing, it must happen. I've listened to a lot of the submissions as well, and I think some of the messages that I'm hearing is we, the First Nation people, are very spiritual people, and we have not lost that, and should not be forgotten. When you look at it for a moment, it doesn't matter if you're following spirituality or culture or whatever denomination you choose. At the end of the day, we are very spiritual people. I think when we think for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, members of the gallery, elders, commission members, I think, we are at the tipping point of history, and what happened in this era must not be forgotten, because we have to be very certain to a degree that history must never repeat itself. And I've heard that as well through even child welfare systems. We must not go down the path of the mistakes that happened. Successor governments have to clearly understand that, because that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Successor governments must not continue to put this aside and continue down the path perceived normality. It's not normal. It doesn't matter which country you're from, it's not normal. I think, the work that's been done here has been excellent. I want to thank, everyone that's been involved, Ermineskin, Musqueam, the support groups, the church groups, the elders, people that have been involved in all of this. It's all powerful. And the two things that I've really observed is, I think, in my humble observations, if I may, is the youth need to be involved, because they're going to carry the torch tomorrow. I think language is key. Funding for lost languages is key, because I spoke in my own language. And the reason I did that is, ladies and gentlemen, is the school is here, but yet there was people from Alexis that came here to this school too, spoke a different language. So you can well imagine, you didn't know how to speak English, didn't know how to speak French, you didn't know how to speak Cree. We spoke Nakota, Stoney, Sioux. Others as well, perhaps Dene, perhaps Soto, perhaps Ojibwe. Different languages. So you can well imagine the situation. Sometimes Canadians think that we all speak the same language. It's not true. We all, as First Nation people, we know that. It's not true. It's just like being taught Ukrainian in a French school. But our culture and our spirituality is the same to a large degree. And I really thank the elders that continued retaining the culture and spirituality throughout tumultuous years. Now, as I stand here before you today, one of the biggest things, no doubt, is another painful past of the Canadian history has emerged. And that's why I think the Truth and Reconciliation Commission must have full access to all information, and information cannot be withheld, irregardless if they're posted, signed, stamped as secret documents. Secret documents can be released after 20 years and on and on. It depends on the will of the government of the day. Why I said that, as you all know, just recently now comes the experimentation of vitamins, drugs, and starvation, and etc. that also took place. Prime Minister Harper and his successor government now must, at some point, begin to put action into words and follow the strict protocols of the First Nation cultures, irregardless where you're from in Turtle Island. Once you make a commitment to the elders, the Right Honorable Prime Minister of this country, Prime Minister Harper, and his members of cabinet must finish the task and not have empty words. Having said that, the journey has been long. I know we all feel the effects of it regardless. As I attested to earlier, my grandparents raised me up. And I know what people go through. On that note, elders, members that gave testimony here, opened their hearts, I absolutely commend each and every one of you. Hi, shnish muasin ekse.
We have a, thank you, Cameron. We have a presentation for you. Thank you for visiting our community, and here's a gift from the committee to you. Thank you very much. Now we're going to ask, yesterday we forgot, well, not we, I forgot. Went through the program quite fast, and I forgot that our honorary witness was supposed to address the crowd. I mean the group. Sorry, not crowd. Again, sorry, the group. And I skipped her. So this morning she talked, and we're back to being friends again. So it's okay. But today we're not going to do that, because if I did skip him, there's no opportunity for him to address the group. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, may I present Mr. Roger Epp from the University of Alberta, a former Dean of the University of Alberta, also with the Augustana campus. Roger, our honorary witness. Here you go.
Thank you, Brian. You didn't mention the part about hand games. He and I were a great team a long time ago. Still are. We just never play. It has been an honor for me to be, first of all, asked to participate in this day, and then to listen for this day as an honorary witness. I hope that my words will do justice to the brave and clear words that you have already heard, and that they will encourage all of us who have gathered to listen to do what we will need to do next. How is it that we will speak about this day? You have been sitting a long time, I know, but bear with me just a little bit. I'm supposed to earn my keep here yet, just a little bit. I want to start with appreciation for all of those who have hosted this event, who have planned for it, who have prepared the displays, who've created a setting of hospitality for all of us, and also express appreciation for those who have been part of the Commission's work. I can only imagine that this is tough work, hearing after hearing, and want to encourage you as you do, as you are in the home stretch. It is good for this hearing that we are in a school, and a school essentially on the site of the old Ermineskin Residential School. I'm an educator, and it strikes me as a great offense against education that it was such a prominent national goal of this country for so long to use education as a hammer, something with which to beat something out of people, and to use education as a wedge, that is, in the old phrase, to separate the child from the Indian. And we should be thankful, I suppose, that such an ambition, such a twisted idealism, such a monstrous ambition, a planned monstrosity, as destructive as it was of communities, we should be thankful that it did not ultimately succeed. Otherwise, we would not be here. And we are in a school today that under good leadership takes education not to be a hammer, not a wedge, but is bringing together those things that were once pried apart. Fitting. I too have a short history in the old Ermineskin residential school. At its very end, when I think the building was officially condemned but was still in operation as the site of Maskwacis Cultural College. I came there the first time to teach Political Science 101 to about a dozen students. I don't see any of them here today, but I still keep in touch with some of them. And they showed me that education was not really only or ultimately about careers. It was about hope and liberation and serving the community. And once or twice they showed me the peepholes still in the walls where previous generations of students had been spied upon. Those markers were still there. One spring I came back to Maskwacis in the old residential school to see how much Cree a Munyao like me could learn in 6 weeks. I was the token Munyao in the room. And I still know a few words. For some reason, I still know that a potato is an askibwawa. Yeah, is that close? And I still know that if you want to emphasize something, you say tapueo. And I did it well enough that the teacher thought I must be better at this Cree understanding than I really was. But I was good at repeating back. And I sat with the older classmates at noon because we did this all day for 6 weeks. It was too much for me. And at lunch in the basement, they would tell stories. Some of them, those who were my age and older. They weren't bitter. That's just how it was. And they told stories. So those experiences were part of my introduction to this community and to people who have become friends, who are still friends. They helped me in my own prairies journey to understand what it was that a fourth generation son, grandson of settler people needed to know in order to live here with a sense of memory and care and obligation. For I too have ancestors buried on Treaty 6 land. So my rethinking led me to 3 conclusions that I won't take a lot of time to unpack, but just to say. First of all, those of us who are settler people must challenge in every generation, because it keeps coming back, the mythology that there was nothing here when we came, that we made something of it, and that we represented, therefore, a superior civilizing force. The mythology is very powerful. The historical reality is more complicated than that. For generations, people have wanted to solve the Indian problem. I want people to ask, what is the settler problem? Secondly, and this is a phrase I learned from a student from Hobbema, who in a moment in class where, this was in Camrose, where she felt she needed to turn around and tell someone how it was, she said, we're all treaty people here. If you live on Treaty 6 land, we're all treaty people. A treaty is a relationship, after all, and we all live here on the basis of an agreement. Signed in 1876, 1877, the first time not very far from where my settler ancestors homesteaded.
Third conclusion is that while it is good for national leaders to make public apologies, the work of reconciliation is not just for governments. Actually, I don't think they're very good at it. The work of reconciliation is work for neighbors in the way that has really moved along here. And that's why it's so important that in this room there are people from Wetaskiwin and from Camrose and from Edmonton, because the work of reconciliation is the work of neighbors, all of us. So it's now 5 years ago or so that the Prime Minister said in very clear terms at the time that the residential school system, the attitudes that led to it, had no place in Canadian society, and that the burden of the survivors needed to be taken off the backs of the survivors and put on the backs of all of us. Something to that effect. And I think the words were sincere, but they were not enough. They did not change relationships, not enough. Though they acknowledged the truth of what had happened in ways that made it possible to put it back in the bottle. Perhaps those words fell on the stony ground of the attitude that thinks that once an apology's been given, you can forget something, and that that's what this is about. Let's just get on with the future. I have a student now who comes from a country in South America where a cruel military dictatorship in the 1970s and the 1980s did unspeakable things to people, sometimes eliminated parents so that the children could be taken from them and given to other people. She too is thinking about apologies, forgetting, forgiving, truth, reconciliation, and memory. What do you do with all of that memory? What do you do with a wrong on such a monstrous scale, where many people are implicated? And she has decided, and we talk about this, that there cannot be forgetting. Instead, she says, what's needed is to remember. Take that word remember and divide it. Remember. That is to make it possible for people to be members in a shared society, a shared story, a shared sense of responsibility for what comes next. To remember in a bigger circle. Community of memory and responsibility. We have witnessed today how that can be so. We've witnessed individual courage, and we've glimpsed a strength of community. We've heard stories that I understand have not been heard in the community before. Now, I am an outsider, and it's an interesting thing to be a listener in a room as an outsider where I don't know I don't know the histories of the people telling the stories. I don't know where they fit into the community. I don't know if this is the first time they've said what they've said. But after a day, the stories build. And maybe that's not the most important point. You get a window into the truth of separation and loneliness and shame and abuse and anger and fear. Sometimes clarity, sometimes acceptance. And that struggle, how much forgiving and forgetting should you do? It was very interesting for me to see all of the men today. I don't know if that's unusual. very powerful to see all of the men who spoke, not to diminish the other presentations, but the men who spoke with tears, who spoke of intimate details, sexual abuse, hunger and thirst, physical abuse, who did it in a matter-of-fact way, to put it on the record. And then to hear at the end of the day Lorne Green's riveting person-by-person act of memory. Who can forget? Like Commissioner Wilson, I took notes and wrote down some of the things I'd heard, and she took all the good lines already, so I won't repeat them. But I think I have 2 or 3 left. They took away childhood from right under our feet. Every time I wash my face, I remember what happened. There were a lot of things I couldn't do in the community because of the things I went through. As for me, I had the Creator at my side at all times. And I think the Cree word was Hagamemwen, keep trying. Keep trying. So how will we bear witness? How will we tell of this day when we disperse? What have we seen and heard? How will we remember? How will we draw on the resources, as Mayor Elliott has drawn on resources in his own family story, to get it and help our neighbors get it? What bridges of understanding do we have? What courage can we find to tell a different story than the one we have told? How will we refuse to forget and instead remember ourselves in a bigger circle, a bigger community of memory and responsibility? Here's where I think I say Eximaga. Aye, aye.
Tapue. Hi. Thank you, Roger. We have a presentation for you. Thank you for helping us out today. On behalf of the Hobbema Truth and Reconciliation Committee, we want to express our appreciation for the support of our sponsors. Go ahead. Too numerous to mention. I can't list them all, so. And all the people who donated whatever items we needed here, thank you very much. All the donations, thank you. Commissioners Wilson and Littlechild, thank you very much. Give them a nice round of applause. And Truth and Reconciliation staff, thank you. Give them a nice round of applause. Technicians as well. The technicians worked hard, so thank you. Both honorary witnesses, thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Especially to all the ones who shared their truth, both private and public, over the past 2 days. Let's give them a nice round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And our church representatives, all the denominations I think are here. I hope. No, just kidding. Let's give them a nice round of applause anyway. Thank you very much. all the ones that we know anyway, right? And the RHS workers, I think they're the ones with the red vests. I'm pretty sure they are. Give them a nice round of applause. Yep. And all the people who have joined us here in the past 2 days, and all the ones out at the via webcast. So give them a nice round of applause. People. Yeah. And last but not least, our hard-working volunteers. Let's give them a nice round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to also honor our friend and our newfound friend and neighbor, Mr. Mayor Bill Elliott. We have a presentation for you, so we have a gift for you, if you wouldn't mind. Brian will give you a presentation. So thank you for supporting us in our community and being here when we ask you. So we'll keep giving you gifts. When the gifts stop coming is when you worry. And if you're not sure what to do with the blankets, what we do is we hang them up. So, and at night, we kind of move them over to the windows so they really work. They work. Block out a lot of light if you don't like light coming in. So, ladies, come on up. Yesterday, we had a song, a birthday song for all of the ones who didn't make it home from residential school. Today, we'd like to honor the survivors of residential school, the ones who did come home. And come on up, ladies. Let's go. Cupcake time. Come on. Yeah, really. So, and we sang a song in Cree. Yeah, they're going to sing again. Yeah. What's a cake without a song, right? Just doesn't fit. Oh, okay. So what's the word again? Okay. Help us out because I know some of you were here yesterday. Kawi mio tipskin. That's the word, okay? And sung to the tune of the birthday song, right? Happy birthday song. Okay. All right. Me. Go ahead. All right. Now we're going to go with the conventional birthday song. 1, 2, 3, go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Awasisa. Happy birthday to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, Lee, what happened there? Yes. Commissioner Wilson, we also have a presentation for you. So come on up. We have a gift for you.
Okay, the co-host committee wanted to present the Commissioner Wilson with a gift of appreciation. Thank you for providing good leadership, a gentle, kind, guiding hand through this whole process. And just wanted to say thank you. We're giving you the window cover, I guess, and a series. That's right, wall hanging mural window cover, as well as a series of books here about that were out in display. All books about Hobbema and about Hobbema people, and hopefully you enjoy reading them. And thank you very much for all the work you did.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay. So now we're almost at the end of our program. We've asked our elder Josephine Buffalo to give us the invocation as she will pray for all of you on safe journeys home and going back to your loved ones and in good health and friendship and love and good relations with all mankind.
Kinanaskom tena tahtoka ne hiaueke pesitos kawae kokoke. Tahtoka kaskihtaatske piiks kuetsik. Eksim tunaya ni muusihtaan. Tansi ekipeisaaja huapahtih, ekipeis huapahtih kauiak. Niistä tekipeiks nahmauksiaan, pekaim heukiskawa tapkoiki hajaajan. Makan muikat ngapuun ehteen neukumak nyihkoi katteestaan. Eukoma. I'd like to thank the people that came forward, talk about what they went through. It took a lot of courage for them to speak. I am one of the survivors. So is my sister. My late sister passed away. What she went through, she became an alcoholic. She died an alcoholic because she couldn't go forward of what she had to endure. And so is my late brother. Both of them are gone. My mom was a survivor, my dad. What alcohol does to mask the pain, I understand. A lot of people that don't know what we went through, they cannot imagine what our people went through. What we had to live with. The devil we lived with, the pain, shame, physical, verbal, emotional. And some of the people, I used to wonder why they committed suicide. People drank. Little did I realize they had to use that bottle to drown the pain. Our parents, their parenting was taken away from them. It affects us. How many more generations are going to be affected? We need to come together, form a circle of understanding to come together as one. We have our home fires here. All the people that came here to go back home to their home fires. Safe trip home. The best weapon we have is prayer. We'll never forget. We have to move forward. It's going to be there with us till the day we die. But looking back, there was some help there, support for my father and my mother, my brother, my sister. Today, they find no history of me being in residential school. But I have my children to support me. My late husband was a survivor. Towards his last days, he talked about what he had to go through. I couldn't help it. I cried. And he said, don't cry. It's me, I went through that. The physical abuse he went through, verbal abuse. It was such a sad story, and I asked him, why didn't you tell this story a long time ago? He said, it's too painful and it's shame. A few months after that, I lost him to cancer. He had a lot of history. He was a library of knowledge. The Creator put us on this planet, Mother Earth. We had our pharmacy. We don't utilize that. The plants, the healing plants. We had our garden. Our Mother Earth produced berries, vegetation, animals. We don't use those. A lot of young people that are here, listen to the older people and parents. You'll get your knowledge. One day, our elders teaching that library is going to be closed. Where are our young people going to learn? And I like to thank these people that sat here in front with me. I never thought I'd be sitting here. When I was asked to speak, I said, no, I'm not going to speak. But like I say, it takes courage. Go home in a piece of healing. It's a lifetime of healing. I work with inmates. I'm a part-time worker. That's where I got to know our mayor from Wetaskiwin, Panoka Red Deer. I got to meet a lot of people. I travel a lot, work related, traditional. And where I work, I travel a lot. Sometimes my children said, can you stay home 1 week? But I'm busy, grandmother. I like to help people. I guess that's a reason why I am one of the survivors. And I will continue to share whoever comes to me, the knowledge I will share. But the Creator will take care of you, your travels, your home lives, your children. Go home to your home fires where your home is. Hobbema is not all bad. There's a lot of good people. They prove to us they are volunteers here. Their concern, their patience, not complaining about their work, walking back and forth. That's what we call wichihton. E hakamei moyak. Ksemanto ka kawicheko au kiwe eko. Tamam sieko ksemanto. Maka nanasko ma Brian no epea. It's nama utau. Oma makaya. Nakakisi mono ma. Wies mi kawe ana oste ma. Hai. Nohtaka ksiwat siin. Iko kota kahkeuki kwai. Iko emong sihta nitsik timaks. Nuah komakan. Nitsik iwats. Ntanento koma nohtse kwa hota tanakatakik. Tanakatamak. Ksuehtamun kane peusik. Tan stohtamak. Utehta kohteak. Essa emkojak semanto. Minä kahki on kuuttahka ajat, kapetta kohteet semanto tavasimsa. Semanto on tavasimsa tavaskapiin. Kiam. Emi asini iki koetta piikskoista maa kojaktan stohtaa kojakik. Tami on kiue kahkio. Tami on paik. Nanaskomauk semanto. People that stand around here, you are the Creator's child. I always say child. Ntawasims. may you take home the good stories. We are survivors. I'd like to thank all the people that came here. Safe travel. Thanks for holding our hands, being here. It's called love and patience. May you go home with a good heart. We leave all the pain here. Eksmakesin totamata noftaksi oatsin. Hai.
Gentlemen, please remain standing. We have a closing song here. Go ahead. That, hello? That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our two-day Truth and Reconciliation hearings. Have a safe trip on behalf of my family and friends. Take care, good health, good spirit. Thank you.